Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, where on this episode, I'm going to answer a ton of your questions. We're going to talk about a lot. We're going to talk about the disclosure movement and what's been going on in 2025, the longevity now, and the importance of the SIR NOFACE footage, and a bunch of other interesting things, which, if this is your first Q&A episode you've ever heard, how we do it is I take the questions that I've been asked the most, and I kind of compile them into a few questions, and then I also look for the most unique questions that you ask me. But before we get into that, as I promised you all, I would be letting you know where our next event is going to be, and it is in Yorktown, Texas, on August 16th and 17th at the Yorktown Asylum. This place is terrifying. It is on my top 5 list of most haunted locations I have ever investigated. It's about 30 minutes outside of San Antonio, and what's really awesome about this event is it's a really big location, and it's hard to get big locations to do minimum-sized events. And I like to keep the numbers down for investigations because you try to fit 100 people into a place, it gets really hard to investigate anything. But the owner is a good friend of mine, and we have it worked out where we're going to hold this event for 25 people. That is it. Now, I announced this event last week, and VIP tickets are already sold out. As of now, there's only 15 tickets left, which you can get your tickets right now for AGH Presents the Yorktown Asylum on August 16th and 17th by clicking the ticket link in the description box below. This place is truly awesome, and it has never let me down. I hope to see you there on August 16th and 17th at the Yorktown Asylum. Okay, let's get into some questions here. Many of you have asked me, what do I think about the direction that the disclosure movement has gone thus far in 2025? Well, to be honest, I have 2 trains of thought about all of it. First and foremost, I think that this group of players that we've seen so much, the Corbells and the Elizondos and that kind of whole group, the George Knapps, I think we've probably heard, for the most part, I think we probably heard the last of these guys. Because their whole thing this whole time, especially from like Corbell, has been this: we're going to do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is that the government just tells us what they know. Or the hard way is we just keep rolling out, video footage, and we keep rolling out whistleblowers, yada, yada, yada. And that plan was kind of working in the beginning because I think everybody was just kind of shocked to see the government saying, yes, this footage is ours. And seeing like pilots and things like that and people in an official capacity, an official military capacity, step forward and say, yes, I don't know what that thing was that was flying around. But you got to keep in mind that UFOs have been acknowledged by the government forever. That isn't a new thing. Jeremy Corbell likes to tell you it's a new thing. It's not. For a long time, the government's been saying there are things that we've filmed and taken pictures of and that we've seen that we don't know what they are. Now, that's a big leap, versus they're aliens, right? And everybody knows this. Unidentified just means I don't know what it was. Calling something alien is a different story. Well, whether or not they come out, admit it, and say it, in a straightforward fashion, what Corbell and George Knapp and all these guys are basically stating and trying to push is that aliens are real and they're here. And that may very well be the case. But I don't know that for a fact. And I'm damn sure they don't know that either. So they've been this whole time leaking this footage out, and it's been, by their estimation, designed to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger, meaning there's these first clips that come out, the first 3 clips that came out that are really nothing burgers. There's nothing you can really make out of those videos that's really important other than, I don't know what's on that FLIR footage. But then it started to get a little bit more interesting, and before it gets debunked, all these things, eventually get debunked. But when everybody first saw the footage of the, triangles flying, and as Jeremy said, the pyramids flying over the boat, the warship, the original, right when you see it, the first 5 seconds, it's like shocking. It's like, oh, what is that? Wow. And then, of course, you figure out it's a bokeh, and now it's less shocking because you're just looking at drones, right? And we know drones have been a thing, right? Which we'll talk about that too. And then the footage becomes, oh, look at this jellyfish. This looks scary. This looks unique and interesting and different. And it's balloons. I mean, there's many ways that that's kind of been proven. But the interesting part of all these pieces of footage is always the story of what else is out there, and we know it, but we just can't show it to you. Like when the first three clips came out, the gimbal, the go fast, and the tic tac, there's that footage where the guy goes, look on the radar or something. There's a whole fleet of them. And they're like, yeah, we have footage. Footage exists of the whole fleet, but no one's ever seen it, right? And that's how this always works. And then, with the jellyfish, Corbell's like, this thing floats out over the water, submerges for 17 minutes, and then it rockets off to space at an angle. And it's like, and no one thought to bring that footage out. Someone chopped off the coolest fucking part of the whole thing and just said, here, watch this, float over a camp. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? But they're pushing. And every time they put something out, for those that don't take the time to really dig into the clip to debunk it, I could see why it's effective. Because most people just, man, look, I get it. They're living their lives, man. They've got jobs and families and, things that they've got to do. Most people don't have the time to go, look, let me break down this UFO footage and see what's really going on. You turn on your news, the news is selling it. This is a jellyfish UFO, and it sounds crazy, and you watch these little clips, and I see it all the time. Other, podcasts that are not paranormal related, I mean, when they discuss this thing, they have all the facts wrong. They're like, did you see, I was just watching a podcast with Matt Hoffa, who I love. I think Matt Hoffa is an incredible battle rapper, but a really smart guy anyways. But, that's a completely non-paranormal, podcast. And Hoffa's like, Matt's like, did you see that the government said aliens is real and they've been hiding it? And it's like, no, that's not what they said. That's not what they said at all. But I can easily see how somebody with, an ear, half open to what's going on could, walk away with that kind of thought. But obviously us who are really into it, we know that's not the case. But something recently happened in the beginning of, 2025. And that was, I was really interested to see, once they said, we have a tier 1 operator, a first-hand person who took part, in these, the back engineering program for UFOs, and we have evidence. It's like, okay, now we're stepping it up. Now we're stepping it up. And I was hopeful that was going to be the case. That we were through the garbage footage, we were through the nothing burger stuff, we were through the show of it all, and we were going to get to some legitimate stuff. And that's when the egg came out. But even more concerning than the egg footage, which was talk about a nothing burger. I mean, that might have been the biggest nothing burger. I mean, there was nothing to discern by that footage. The pilot's story, look, it had interesting pieces to it, and I would even go as far as to say that I actually believe that he believes everything he's saying. But that's the problem with that. People can believe really wild shit if enough people are around them saying the same thing. He was talking not only that he picked this egg up, but that some spirit protected him and she's with him now, and some alien spirit is with him now and she's protecting him now. And this thing went really off the rails, really woo-woo. I mean, it really did. And since then, there's just been so much talk of this psionics. And listen, I think it's very fascinating, the idea that there's some way that we could subconsciously communicate with different realms and different dimensions, and all of that stuff is super possible, very interesting, but none of it is remotely proven to be real. It's not. And you're talking to a guy who's had some near-death experiences, and there's some things that I experienced that I believe, for me, like things that I know that I went through that I haven't even spoke about. And why would I, though? Because it's not anything I can prove to anybody. It's not anything that you could, that could stand the rigorous test of science, right? Now, the reason this matters is I think if we've reached that point with this, this movement here for disclosure, that they're now going down these roads of, psionics and speaking to crafts that are alive and speaking to alien cultures from different planets that are alive. And look, I mean, you have to be able to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, or this story is going away fast. And it's interesting to me that since Trump has got in office, and that was like the big hope everybody had of him releasing all the U.A.P. footage, and maybe he still will, but the U.A.P. stuff has been DOA since Trump got in, dead on arrival. Like, even when all the drones, sorry, there's a bunch of noise outside right now. I will try to take all that out. There's a construction company that's moving something right now. I'll try to compress that out. But Trump, even with the drones, I mean, that was a nothing burger answer. But it's the answer that Skyfall said we're all going to get. Listen, he said, it's all our government. He said, all the drones, they're ours. And that's essentially what Trump's spokesperson said. He didn't say it's ours. He said it's the FAA. And a lot of things they said didn't make any sense, because if it was ours and the FAA knew about it, they wouldn't have, banned a flight. But I think what Trump was just trying to get across is that there's nothing for us to fear, in the sense that they weren't enemy. And that's exactly what Skyfall said. He said, it's all ours. It's all our stuff. Everything that's going on in Jersey right now, it's all our stuff. And he said, you don't have to make any announcements as to it being alien or UFOs or anything like that, because people are going to think that anyways, and that's part of the PSYOP. And that made total sense. Exactly what he said is what they came out and said. He also said that there wouldn't be like some bang knockout piece of evidence that was coming out. He said over the next 90 days, this is at the beginning of January, Skyfall said over the next 90 days that the world would become very chaotic, and that basically our government in general would start acting in a way that, would sow a lot of fear. And that's exactly what's been going on. And he talked about world governments doing the same. He said in the next 90 days, things are going to get very unstable, and people are going to, fear the instability. And that, sets up, in accordance to his predictions, this great attempt by our government to ultimately requalm all these fears before this, quote, fake alien invasion happens, which will be followed by a real invasion. But my point in all of this being is, I don't think, Elizondo, I don't think Corbell, Knapp, that whole group, I think they're out of firepower. I don't think they have shit left. And that should be concerning to everybody, that they don't. Because that just tells you that they were, purely puppet heads. But, look, we will see. Because there are great pieces of footage out there. There's every reason to believe that we've been visited. Since the dawn of time, these visitations have been happening. And to be honest, this whole thing, when I look at all the footage now that's been released, suddenly all of the kind of fear and all the shit that Craig and I have gone through promoting and pushing the SIR NOFACE footage out suddenly now makes sense to me, because that footage, the SIR NOFACE footage, to this day remains completely undebunked. Nobody has been able to figure that out. And they're not going to be able to, because you simply can't. We're talking about a 3-foot creature somehow made no sound whatsoever for 4 hours and 58 minutes if it was in that room that whole time, or it just appeared, in a room that you could not even lean without creaks and cracks just popping through. I mean, the building is condemned that it was in. We know for a fact who comes on the island and who comes off the island. There's ledgers. It could have been just a person dropped in there. I mean, they would have had to walk around to get to the location that SIR NOFACE was. They have to use the bathroom. It couldn't be a child, and we're talking about something that was 3 foot tall. So there's just that footage completely appears to be some kind of entity that resembles a gray, or possibly it is what Dr. Greer says, which is a manufactured gray. As crazy as that sounds, I haven't heard a better explanation, but that would explain to me his whole backstory. See, the details around that whole story, and the details surrounding Craig and his team, are what make that story so special. The fact that the government got a hold of him, that they offered him all the money in the world, complete access, full autonomy on the island, none of that makes sense. Why would the government be doing that? And why would they choose them? If not for any other reason than to test something out, and then if they came out and made any claims, they could simply make fun of them. They could simply say, oh yeah, who said this? The ghost hunters? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But that footage to me is legit. It remains undebunked. And when I compare it to the other footage that's out there that's been released, to me, it's heads and tails above anything that's out there right now. It's the only footage I know that could be called gray alien footage that's like legit, meaning there's an entity there. I mean, I don't know if the SIR NOFACE footage is footage of a gray or a manufactured gray, but it damn well appears to be. And to this day, that footage remains undebunked. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, especially, I remember when we were on tour, and the first time the crowd, it started on night one, we started playing that field, and everybody was going, dude, I realized that you were sent there to look for ghosts and stuff, but that's an alien, not a ghost. And I remember because we went in there with, these, looking at things through a paranormal, spiritual ghost glasses, we had just never really got into that deep of a conversation about it. But the second everybody started reacting to it, it was impossible to not consider. And then after a while, you're like, yeah, that does, that does look like a little gray. It does. It's wild. But ultimately, I think the disclosure movement is, I think those guys have kind of done their role, whatever their role in this was. I think the fact that Lou's book is out, that's probably his payday, so he's done. Corbell, we saw him freak out in Congress, and, they're done with him, for sure. So, yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but I think that's what's going on with the disclosure movement. Put my glasses on here. Sorry, I took them off for a second. Let's get into some other individual questions. Okay. Karen from Indianapolis asks, how's my health and what do I feel I've learned, if anything, from going through such a traumatic experience? My health continues to get better and better and better. I feel stronger than I've ever felt. It was probably the last 3 years ago. I feel really good. I lost my voice for the last 2 weeks, but that was, I didn't completely lose it, no sound was coming out. I was just doing a lot of singing for the soundtrack, and I got a bit of a normal common cold, and it got really scratchy, so that's why I took a couple weeks off just to heal the throat up. But yeah, no, everything's going really, really good. And what did I learn? I mean, God, that's hard. I mean, so much. But I was talking to Laura, because we do get into these late night conversations about all this stuff. And I think the thing that I probably learned the most through going through such a horrific hospitalization with so much recovery time. I mean, everybody knows the most valuable thing in the world is time. Everybody knows that, right? But until it's taken from you in a way like that, I don't know that you can truly understand the value of that, of losing those days, of not getting that time back, and the value of just health, just having good health. And I think there were some other things that people never consider, and including me. I was completely guilty of this, of basic things that you have, that if I took them away, or somebody or something, somebody, some accident, some, whatever, fate, destiny, took it away, how sad you would be and how thankful you should be. Like, what I'm referencing is I remember the 8 months of not being able to speak and having no voice. And, my left arm, when I couldn't move it, and that was, geez, that was almost a year that was like that. Like, I'm sure most of you guys probably didn't wake up this morning and go, thank God I can move my arms and legs, right? And that's totally human to take things for granted. Because if you've always had that, why would you think that, right? But I remember that, of just sitting around going, fuck, man. Like, until now, I've never liked, thank God that I had moving arms. So when that, mobility started to come back, and I only cried a couple times throughout the whole thing. But one of the days was when my voice first started coming back. I had a breakdown there. And the other one, yeah, was when I was, like I said, forever, I just had no feeling in my arm. And it started tingling a lot. Like, it was like needles. Like, I'd be sitting here and then just feel like 100 needles were just shoved into my arm, up and down it. I started telling Laura, I'm like, something is going on here. Something is going on. And then I woke up one morning and it was like it was on fire. I was like, oh my God. And I guess I moved it, or basically made a motion, and it came about halfway up. My forearm came up to my stomach, and then my arm dropped down. I was like, oh my God. I like freaked out because I had not been able to move it until then. And I remember, yeah, I started crying about it. I mean, like a little baby, man, just like a little sobbing baby. And I remember just telling myself that I'm going to wake up every morning and just really thank God for whatever I have, whatever it is that I do have, whatever it is. You cannot have it. It can be taken from you. Trust me. And I think if there's one thing I could say, what's the most important thing that I've learned, is to value that time and take nothing for granted. Because it could all be over. Tomorrow is not a day owed, they say. That is true. Yeah, good question. Okay, Evan from Perth, Australia says, Chad, my man, the 20-minute sneak peek from Harbingers is epic. I think everyone has been waiting for something this real in the paranormal genre. When do you estimate it will be complete? My goal is June. July at the latest. That would put it out by October. And that would mark 10 films in 10 years, which, dare I say, you're not going to find anybody else who's released that many features in that short a time. Very proud of that goal, and I want to make that goal and hit that mark. So yeah, that's the goal right now. Thank you for asking, and thank you for your compliments as well. That means a lot to me. Joe from Iowa City says, hey Chad, I wanted to apologize for sleeping on your music. I finally gave your tunes a listen and was blown away. In fact, I shared it with my wife as well, and we cannot stop listening to God-fearing. Her favorite is The Cure. My question is simple. When is the new album going to be released? That I will have an announcement for you next week, because the album is now done. And there's a bunch of stuff you've heard and a bunch of stuff you haven't. I also want to say thank you for not sleeping on my music and for giving it a chance. I think people will like it if they do decide to give it a listen. Music is very important to me. It is my number one love in the world. I love singing. I love songwriting. It's magic to me for sure. And I want to get the music out early because I just know films are more enjoyable when you know the music. And when really cool music comes in over segments, it's just really powerful. So I want to get that music out there pretty quickly. So I am going to be announcing a way that we'll be able to do that next week. So, Betsy Drew from Omaha, Nebraska says, I heard you say on a past podcast that songwriting and ghost hunting both make you feel close to God. Can you elaborate on this? Yeah, ghost hunting, if you've ever been in a room where something big happens, like, whatever, a table moves, something flies, you clearly hear a voice that shouldn't be there. There is a fear that comes over you. And I've often wondered what that fear is, because I don't have a fear of something hitting me or hurting me. I don't feel like something's going to throw me through a window or anything like that. I don't know where the fear comes from. And I think it's that, as people reference, that God-fearing type of fear, where you just know there's something bigger than you and you're getting to witness it. And I've always felt that way when I'm ghost hunting and something major happens that's undeniable. Or if, like the last time I was at the Yorktown Asylum, there was some holy shit moments that went on. And you feel like you're in the presence of God, of some kind of power that is so beyond you. And that is an adrenaline rush for me that I have never been able to quench that thirst. It has always been, it's like, what's that? I have a lyric I wrote a while ago that says, now that I've had a drink of you, I just can't pour you out. Now that I've had a taste of you, I'll always want another. And that's exactly how I feel when I'm ghost hunting and something like that happens. And the same thing when I'm songwriting. Every now and then you get a song like the one I just talked about last week and played last week. And thank you for all your comments. Thank you guys for listening to God-Fearing. And I urge you all to go listen to it. Those who have, dare I say, have been very pleased with it and very excited about the song. That whole song, which arguably is the best song I've ever written, and I'm not saying that. That's what I keep hearing from those who are listening to it and those who know my music. And I love the song. And I wrote the whole thing in 5 minutes. Music, vocals, lyrics, everything. And that doesn't happen all the time. That rarely happens. But it's happened many times in my life. Meaning, 5 or 6 times out of the 200 songs that I've written, there's been a handful that just write themselves, where it really does seem like you didn't, how do I say this? It seemed like God allowed you to pen the song for him. It seems like you got in the way of the song. Like this song was flying through the universe somewhere and you got in the way of it. And it hit your ears and it hit your mind and it hit your thought process. And it felt so familiar. It felt like you've heard it before, like it was meant to be. And you know it when it's happening. You do. You know it when it's happening. And when the song's over and you're done writing it and you play it and you can sing it, you know it. You know there was something bigger than you, something stronger than you, something more compassionate than you, more loving than you, more understanding than you. And that's powerful. Yeah. If you guys get the chance, please listen to the song God-Fearing. It's on my page right now. Yeah. But good question. Thank you for asking. Belinda from Sacramento says, hi, Chad. Could you tell us 3 things that nobody knows about you? Okay, 3 things that nobody knows about me. I want to think of something, I guess, funny or interesting. I don't know if I've ever said this on here before or not, but you might be interested to know. I only mentioned this because Laura and I just watched a Saturday Night Live clip a couple days ago. That's pretty funny. I have been on Saturday Night Live, not as somebody in the audience, not as a musician, but as a cast member. Years ago in 2000, I believe it was, 1999 or 2000, I was managing a band called Mr. Plow, and they got a big ASCAP showcase in downtown New York. And I always wanted to see Saturday Night live. And but more than that, I used to just think it would be so fun to be a part of that team, just to do it. I was a big fan of SNL in college, and yeah, it was one night about 1 in the morning, and myself and the Mr. Plow guys decided to go to the pizza store at the corner, and we went out there and we were just eating our slice of pizza outside, and a couple production trucks showed up and they started staging this whole corner shoot right in front of us. And this gal walks over and she just says, "Hey, do you guys want to be on Saturday Night Live?" And I said, "You got to be shitting me." And she's like, "No." And she goes, "We need to cast an angry mob for this segment. And basically, you're going to chase a guy that's supposed to be a Democrat, and Adam McKay, the director, well, he's a famous director now. He directed like Anchorman and a bunch of other huge shows. He's Will Ferrell's partner in about everything. But then he was a writer and kind of a secondary actor on SNL. And they said he's going to pull up and grab this guy and throw him in the van, and that's your part of it. And then they'll kick it back to Jimmy Fallon and Tina Fey, and we were like, hell yeah. And so yeah, we signed right there. They shot it, and like 3 nights later, I was back in Iowa and watching myself and Mr. Plow and all of us on Saturday Night Live, which is pretty wild. So that was pretty fun. You might not have known that I have been a cast member on SNL. Let's see, what else? I don't drink. I haven't drank in, well, the last 20 years, I've drank once. And it was actually the night that I met Buell for the first time. That's pretty much it. I don't smoke weed either, even though I live in a state where it's legal. I did, of course, when I was in my band. In fact, here's something interesting. The first time I ever smoked weed in my life, the first time I ever smoked it, was with a gentleman named Rob Van Winkle. You may know him as Vanilla Ice. Yes, my band 35-Inch Mutter played a sold-out show, and he was added to the bill. For a time period, Vanilla Ice did a metal band, a metal version of his stuff, and he toured around with them. So they ended up putting him on the show with us, and we packed this club, Mary's Out. And he was a really cool guy, super nice guy. And he smoked a ton of weed. And it's kind of those when in Rome type things where if I was going to hang out with him, it would have seemed pretty weird back then if I refused to partake. So I just took a couple hits. That was about it. Never liked weed. Never been my thing. Makes me feel stupid and slow. But I thought it was a good story to say the first time I ever smoked weed was Vanilla Ice. So that's pretty good. Okay. What would be 3? Something you don't know about me. Some of the best advice I've ever received as a filmmaker came directly from the legendary director Robert Altman. He directed Gosford Park, Cookie's Fortune, The Player. Legendary director. And it was kind of an interesting story how it all happened, but the first film I ever wrote and produced when I was 19 years old. We ended up getting Robert Altman's grandson, Dana Altman, ended up being the director of it. And when we were out here taking production meetings, out of the blue, Dana surprised us by setting up a meeting with Robert Altman for dinner, which I couldn't believe it. It just literally came out of the blue. What I didn't know is that he and Robert didn't really get along. So we went to Robert Altman's house to have dinner, and this massive family argument broke out. And a good friend of mine, Corey, who was a producer, was with me. And we were going out on the balcony, just kind of, we must have waited out there for 2 hours as this family argument erupted. It was so fucking uncomfortable. But before I left, I did get to spend probably about an hour with Robert talking with him about the business. And he just said something that's always struck me as really important. I asked him if he could give me one piece of advice as a director or a filmmaker, what would that be? And he said, if you're going to say you're a filmmaker, you better be making a film. You better be always making a film. And he said, everybody in this town, 99% of the people that claim to be filmmakers, will never make a film. They'll tell you about their ideas for a film, but they won't have the balls to go make one. And Robert was a legendary independent filmmaker, so I knew what he was saying, that it takes a lot of balls to go out there and put your own money on the line and try again, and to make independent films. And that you got to be doing that. If that's the commitment and that's who you are, then that's got to be real. It can't just be something you talk about. And I always found that to be very true. And a great piece of advice. So I don't know if that satisfies your question, but those are 3 things you may have not known about me. I don't think I've talked about them. I think I might have told an even more detailed version of the Altman story before. But I think that's important for people to know that story. Robert's passed away now, unfortunately. And I just thought it was really good advice. Just basically don't be the bullshitter. And that means in anything in life. If you're going to say you're something, be that something. Really be it, Okay. Last question. Kiana from Paris, Texas asked me, what's the most scared you've ever been outside of paranormal investigating? I remember saving this question because I thought it was interesting when I read it, because I had to think about it. The most scared that I've been outside. There might be other examples, but one that always comes to my mind is when I was directing music videos. There was about a 2-year window of my career where I directed 40 music videos over the course of 24 months. I was traveling constantly. And there was a music video, I shot 2 of them in Alaska, and then I had a day off, and then I had another one in Portland that was going to be starting. On the day off, I decided to fly home and see Laura. So I finished up in Alaska, flew home, and the next morning there was a 5 a.m. flight to Portland. And I've always had this terrible fear of flying. And believe me, I've gotten over it, because I have been on 1,000 flights all over the world. And yeah, if you're going to be in this business, you better get over flying, that's for sure. But we got on the plane, and we took off for Portland, and we went up, and really quickly, my ears just popped like they had never popped before. And they just started ringing. And shortly after the ringing started, they started hurting. And I was like, oh, Jesus. And I'm looking around, and everybody around me is holding their ears too. And right as I'm about ready to stop the stewardess to say, what is going on? There's this large, it's like a shake of the plane. And the oxygen masks come out. And I'm like, what the fuck? and right after that happens, this plane starts diving. I'm talking nose diving Just you could hear it louder than hell. I'm thinking, oh my God, we are going down. And no one's saying anything. No one is saying anything. And then when I say this thing is nosediving, I mean, I'm speaking from memory, so maybe it wasn't this drastic, but it felt like I was damn near face down. I mean, it was just cruising. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. To the point where I actually literally closed my eyes. And this is how long this was going on. I had long enough to close my eyes and just like try to send a message to Laura, like mentally, I was literally like, babe, I hope you can feel me right now. If I hope you just feel this thought, and I love you so much, and I'm not going to make it, and just, I love you, and I'm just so sorry this went down like this. And I was like literally saying my goodbyes. And all of a sudden, the plane just pulls up like super fast and it levels out. And the captain comes on and basically explains that there was a really bad leak in however, I don't know anything about planes, but whatever pressurizes the cabin, whatever they do to pressurize it, I don't know if that's O2 or what it is, but basically it just blew and the cabin became completely unpressurized, and we were up by 30,000 feet. So this thing was basically diving to get to an altitude that we could breathe, and our eardrums wouldn't explode and ring and shit, right? So that's all that was going on, is he was trying to get down fast. And I guess the oxygen things, from the way, I don't know how this works, but I was talking to the stewardess, and she was basically saying that those are like automated systems, that if a degree of things happen, they'll happen automatically. So regardless, we turned around and went back to Los Angeles. So we landed. So we took off, went up, got about a quarter of the way there, I guess, before this all happened. Turned around, came back, and landed in LAX. And we deplaned. And like everybody on that plane was like, fuck this. I'm getting a car. I'm driving to Portland. I'm not flying. But I didn't want to drive to Portland. And I'm telling you, I was as terrified. I thought, this is it. I thought I'm dead. But my analytical mind started working on me once I hit the ground. Because immediately, like anybody else who wanted to fly, they were offering to book us on the next available flight. And on that flight, I wasn't even in first class because it was like a very short hop. And they offered to put me in first class on this next flight. And I started thinking mathematically, like, how many flights, that you fly, is something going to go wrong? And I was like, well, man, maybe this is actually good. That was my go wrong flight. And it's past me now. So I was like, what are the chances that like back to back flights would go wrong and anything bad would happen? And the truth is, the chances are whatever they are. Any flight can go wrong. Any flight can go down. It doesn't, there's nothing that says if one flight, had some fuckery going on, that the next one for sure will be good. But I had convinced myself that it would be cool. It would be cool, because what are the chances of two flights in a row being backwards or something getting fucked up? You know what I mean? And so I, believe it or not, after that, I turned right around, and 45 minutes later after we landed, I reboarded another plane. And flew comfortably to Portland, and it was fine. And it was fine home too. But when speaking of fear levels, when that plane was going down, like when the mask came down and then it just dove. Yeah, there was a good 10 to 20 seconds of, yeah, I don't know how to process that kind of fear to even tell you about how scary that was. That was like, yeah, like this is it. You almost go into shock. It's like, yeah, I remember it like a movie, and like in my head, but yeah, for some reason I barely remember the sound, only because I was so in my head at that time. But I remember the look on everyone's faces, and I literally just remember the thing, I'm going to die, and just trying to, yeah, just send a thought to Laura, just apologizing and telling her how much I love her, and I'm sorry that we ended like this, and that she didn't deserve it, and all this stuff, and it was fucking. I was so happy once that plane leveled out. Oh man, when I took some long deep breaths and I just started smiling, looking at my neighbor, I'm like, "We're gonna be good. We're gonna be good, man." I'm like, high fiving a total stranger and everything. It was funny. It was really funny. That has to be up there with some of the most terrifying moments, if not the most terrifying moment of my life. That was really scary. So, anyways, thank you guys for all of the questions. Your curiosity means a lot to me. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Also, once again, if you want to join me at Yorktown Asylum on August 16th and 17th, please click that link below. It's in the description box. The event and ticket link for AGH presents the return to the Yorktown Asylum. I would love to have you there. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. If you want to go on a paranormal investigation with me, this is definitely one that you want to join me on. This place rocks, okay? Also, you guys would be happy to know that I already have 2 more podcasts recorded. So there will definitely be a new podcast episode tomorrow night as well. Much love, everybody, and I will talk to you tomorrow. All the best.